Hi, everyone. Barbara Josselson here, and I am very happy to return for another session of journaling. Let me just take this down. Making this moment in history count. For the last, several weeks, we've been talking a lot about how to approach journaling during this difficult time. We've written some scenes, some thoughts based on some of the memoirs that I've been sharing with you. And today I have a really interesting autobiography that I'd like to share with you as we start the journaling workshop. And it is this big volume, the autobiography of Mark Twain, which came out, several years ago, and is quite a huge and massive kind of a text, but it really is wonderful. And I thought there would be some very interesting moments that I could pull out. So just to review, we've been talking a lot in this workshop about finding moments that reveal what you've been experiencing. We talked about finding interesting observations, observing other people, talking about love, talking about family. And today I wanted to delve into that a little bit more. There's a lot of wonderful moments in Mark Twain's autobiography, but what I'm going to do is read some portions where he was talking about his daughter Susie, and at one point he actually includes in his autobiography some moments from when Susie was writing a biography about him. So I wanted to just read a few sentences or a few paragraphs from one portion of this book. This is dated Wednesday, February 7th, 1906. And it's when Mark Twain was talking about his daughter, Susie, who was 13 at the time. He says, when Susie was 13 and was a slender little maid with plaited tails of copper-tinged brown hair down her back, and was perhaps the busiest bee in the household hive, by reason of the manifold studies, health exercises, and recreation she had to attend to, she secretly, and of her own motion and out of love, added another task to her labors, the writing of a biography of me. She did this work in her bedroom at night and kept her record hidden. After a little, the mother discovered it and filched it and let me see it, then told Susie what she had done and how pleased I was and how proud. I remember that time with a deep pleasure. I had had compliments before, but none of that touched me like this. None of that could approach it for value in my eyes. It has kept that place always since. I have had no compliment, no praise, no tribute from any source that was so precious to me as this one was and still is. As I read it now, after all these many years, it's still a king's message to me and brings me the same dear surprise it brought me then, with the pathos added of the thought that the eager and hasty hand that sketched it and scrawled it will not touch mine again, and I feel as the humble and unexpected must feel when their eyes fall upon the edict that raises them to the ranks of the noble. Yesterday, while I was rummaging in a pile of ancient notebooks of mine, which I had not seen for years, I came across a reference to that biography. It's quite evident that several times at breakfast and dinner in those long past days, I was posing for the biography. In fact, I clearly remember that I was doing that. And I also remember that Susie detected it. I remember saying a very smart thing with a good deal of an air at the breakfast table one morning, and that Susie observed to her mother privately a little later that Papa was doing that for the biography. I cannot bring myself to change any line or word in Susie's sketch of me, but will introduce passages from it now and then, just as they came in their quaint simplicity out of her honest heart, which was the beautiful heart of a child. What comes from that source has a charm and grace of its own, which may transgress all the recognized laws of literature, if it choose, and yet be literature still, and worthy of hospitality. I shall print the whole of this little biography before I am done with it. every word, every sentence. The spelling is frequently desperate, but it was Susie's and it shall stand. I love it and cannot profane it. To me, it is gold. To correct it would alloy it, not refine it. It would spoil it. It would take from its freedom and flexibility and make it stiff and formal. Even when it is most extravagant, I am not shocked. It is Susie's spelling, and she was doing the best she could, and nothing could better it for me. So I'm reading this and I'm thinking of the times when my kids were young and I would read their writing, and there was nothing so magical as learning what was in their minds and how they were processing what they were seeing and how they were, expressing what they were feeling. And so I wanted to kind of dig into that a little bit today with our prompts. What I'd like to do is to see if you could think of a moment, find a moment where you were observing a child in your life processing the current experience, what we're going through, the quarantine. Just in your voice, observing it. It could be a child of yours, a grandchild. Maybe if you're not in close contact with grandchildren, it might be a Zoom meeting, Mother's Day or Easter, Passover, the holidays. And I would, or it could be a child, if you're a teacher or have some profession where you deal with children, or even if it's just a child taking a walk with their parents or siblings or something on the street. I want you to just kind of find a moment that resonated with you. I mean, I think there are a lot of moments these days when I'll see, a lot of it has to do with my own children and watching them. I mean, they're adults now, but they're all here and watching them process what they're going through. There have been moments when I've seen kids on the street walking a dog, or I remember, and I can think about one moment that I would probably write about. We were walking our dog, and there was a child, he must have been about 10, I guess, and he had his dog not on a leash, but on their front lawn. And of course, when his dog saw our dog, he came bounding over, and obviously all social distancing was out the window because the boy, I guess there were maybe 4 of us in my family, my husband and 2 kids. And now this boy had to be very close to us in order to retrieve his dog. And he kept saying, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry, guys, sorry, guys. I mean, he was a young boy, but he was so aware of the gravity and the seriousness of breaking that 6-foot distance and coming through in order to get his dog. And there was something, so sad and desperate and concerning about what the guilt he was feeling in coming so close to us. And I think that'll stay with me for a long time. I kind of felt like 10-year-olds shouldn't need to be feeling the weight of, this kind of illness and sickness and, what could be caused just by chasing his dog down to where the dog could run. Anyway, that would probably be what I would be focusing on. So I would ask you to sort of find a moment with a child and tell me the scene of what you saw this child do that is a reflection of the seriousness of this moment in time. So I think for Mark Twain, I decided to add a little jazz music. So I'm going to up the volume here and give you, I'm going to let you go ahead and do your writing, and I'll check in about 90 seconds or so with a little bit more in the way of a prompt for what's going on. Okay, so have fun, enjoy, and start to write. Okay, I'm going to just cut back in here briefly. I want you to keep working on this, but I did want to just encourage you to make sure that what you're doing in the piece that you're writing is to make sure that the scene is very visual or sensory. So make sure you can see what's going on. If you're outdoors when this happened, as I was, what does this area look like? Is it a residential street? Are there trees, grass? What's the weather? Is it spring? Is it summer? Well, it wouldn't be summer, but I guess it'll sort of be like the winter spring transition when all this is going on. Was the sun out? Was it raining? Is there any dialogue you could put in it also that would add to the scene? So I'll let you go, or even though there are any smells or any sounds that you could also convey to us to really get us into the moment. So I'm going to go ahead and let you continue that. Okay, and I'll put that up a little bit, and I'll check back in soon. Okay, so I'm just going to cut back in here real fast while the music is switching over, and encourage you now to just take a look at what you wrote. I haven't done this in the past, but I'm thinking that maybe it would be a good idea going forward if maybe we always added another 30 seconds, 45 seconds or so to read what you wrote, see if it really conveys where you're going with it, anything you want to change, any words you want to change. So why don't you just take a little bit of a moment for editing or review, and I'll check back in about 30 seconds. To read what you wrote, see if it really conveys where you're going with it, anything you want to change, any words you want to change. So why don't you just take a little bit of a moment for editing or review, and I'll check back in about 30 seconds. Okay, I'm gonna come back in here now. I'm wondering if you were wondering what that reference was in the Mark Twain when he talked about how, what exactly did he say? He made some reference to the fact that his daughter, Susie, had passed away. And I think what he said was, let's see. Well, here it is back here. But let's see, that he would never hear her voice again, I guess. And so I just wanted to explain to you that, yes, Susie had passed away when she was 24 from meningitis. And that is why there's a lot of nostalgia and some wistfulness in Twain's remembrance of her and his feelings of, great affection for what she had left to him, her writing. What I'd like to do now is read you a very short portion that did come from her biography of Mark Twain. As you remember, he had said that there was a lot of writing or she had written a biography about him, and he was going to include snippets of it throughout the course of his autobiography, which he did do. So I'm going to read just a short passage or two from what she had written about her father. Here is the first one. Papa's favorite game is billiards, and when he is tired and wishes to rest himself, he stays up all night and plays billiards. It seems to rest his head. He smokes a great deal, almost incessantly. He has the mind of an author exactly. Some of the simplest things he can't understand. Our burglar alarm is often out of order, and Papa had been obliged to take the mahogany room off from the alarm altogether for a time, because the burglar alarm had been in the habit of ringing even when the mahogany room window was closed. At length, he thought that perhaps the burglar alarm might be in order, and he decided to try and see. Accordingly, he put it on and then went down and opened the window. Consequently, the alarm bell rang. It would, even if the alarm had been in order. Papa went despairingly upstairs and said to Mama, "Livy, the mahogany room won't go on. I have just opened the window, you see." "Why, youth," Mama replied, "if you've opened the window, why, of course the alarm will ring." "That's what I've opened it for. Why, I just went down to see if it would ring." Mama tried to explain to Papa that when he wanted to go and see whether the alarm would ring while the window was closed, he mustn't go and open the window. But in vain, Papa couldn't understand and got very impatient with Mama for trying to make him believe an impossible thing true. I kind of felt that was really funny to know that they actually had problems with their alarm systems, as we do. But that was a very, I thought it was a very sweet illustration of his lack of practical understanding of how things work. That, as she said, he was an author and an artist. And let's see, I think I'm going to read one more passage from her autobiography. Very, very short, this one. Let's see. Papa is very fond of animals, particularly of cats. We had a dear little gray kitten once that he named Lazy. Papa always wears gray to match his hair and eyes. And he would carry him around on his shoulder. It was a mighty pretty sight, the gray cat sound asleep against Papa's gray coat and hair. The names that he has given our different cats are really remarkably funny. They are namely Stray Kit, Abner, Motley, Fraulein, Lazy, Buffalo Bill, Soapy Saul, Cleveland, Sour Mash, and Pestilence and Famine. So that's where I'll stop. So actually, these are very sweet, and if you read them, you'll see that actually the the punctuation isn't always very good. I want to run on sentences, but it's really darling how she observed him and put these memories down. So what I wanted to see, just as a little bit of a creative exercise, is I wanted you to take what you wrote just a couple of minutes ago, the writing that you did about the scene with a child. And what I wanted to see, what I wanted to offer up for you as a prompt is now to write the scene from the perspective of the child. So I would, knowing what I saw in my situation, I would, I think that the child in my situation would probably have been feeling awfully guilty and as though he had misbehaved and, very apologetic as he ran and tried to retrieve his dog. And it saddens me what I think was going through his mind, because it shouldn't have been as dire as it seemed to him, because of what's going on in the world. So I wanted you to go back, like I said, and find that child that you had observed and now write as though you are the child writing his or her autobiography and including that moment. Okay, so start from the beginning and let us know what the child was thinking. Obviously, we don't know exactly what the child is thinking. This is your interpretation, your expectation, and perspective on it. But see what you make of it. See what you make of what was in that child's head. This is a really good exercise for getting into the minds of other people. Sometimes it's when even if you're writing memoir, just the exercise, the practice of getting into the mind of someone else helps you begin to explore your own feelings more. So I'm going to turn up the jazz again and give you a little bit of time to play with this prompt. Okay, here we go. Okay, I'm going to break in here. And I'm going to give you one more prompt for today. And what I'd like you to do is go back, sticking with that same moment. What I'd like you to do is go back and imagine that you could talk to that child that you've been writing about today. What would you tell him or her? How would you, I don't know, add some resolution or comfort or knowledge or understanding to that moment? What would you say now? I mean, I'm again looking back on the moment that I was thinking about. I probably, at the time I remember being very kind of frantic also, knowing that he shouldn't be near us, we shouldn't be near them, near him. But I think now if I had the chance to see him again and how with what maturity he behaved and how he apologized and took responsibility, I would try to tell him, that not to worry, it was okay. And, that these things happen. And, aren't we all lucky to have pets and dogs who are still so rambunctious and, impulsive. And I would assure him that, that a momentary little blip like that wasn't going to really have any devastating effects. And then I hope he was making it through this period well. So I want you to do that, to kind of just reflect on what you would say to that child if you could go back. So again, we have a couple more minutes. I'm going to put up the music and take up maybe a minute and a half or so to do that. Okay, again, I'm going to suggest now that you take another 30 seconds or so to go back over what you've written today and see if there's any words you want to change or words you want to add maybe. And then we'll just wrap up as we head to the end of our session. Okay, so let's see. Half hour always goes so fast. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you're keeping all these scenes together in one notebook or a collection of pages. As we move along, we'll start to put it together into a story, into a more coherent story. But for now, our focus has just been on creating these few scenes. So I'll show you again. This is Mark Twain's autobiography that I was reading from, this huge volume, and it's actually only volume one. A lot of the academic notes and stuff, but really, really interesting. So that's it. And before I wrap up, I just wanted to say a couple of things. One is that I teach novel writing at Sarah Lawrence at the Writing Institute. If you Google Sarah Lawrence College Writing Institute, you can go ahead and you'll see some of the course offerings this summer. I think the first session of the summer is starting soon. The second session of the summer is the registration is going to be put up very soon. That will be July through August. And I hope you'll consider taking a class with me. And I also just wanted to mention that I do have a book that was just released in March, The Lilac House. This is a novel. It's the first novel in the Lake Summer series, a series that I'm starting. The second book will be out in September, but for now, The Lilac House came out just about 2 months ago. I hope you'll check it out on Amazon or any other book site that you like, and see if you might want to delve into it. So let's see. So here, I guess it's just about time to wrap up. I hope you have a good week. I'll look forward to seeing you next week. Okay. All the best to you, and see you next time. Bye now. Came out just about 2 months ago. I hope you'll check it out.